It's 5:31 and I have a couple things to say. Joanne, did we get any comments for open forum?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so there's evidently some new rules and I have to read the following statement at the beginning of the meeting at this time. So there will be no live comments during open forum at this time. The Housing Authority notified the public that all open forum comments must be communicated to the Executive Director by 5 o'clock on January 19th. The Board of Commissioners will go into executive session this evening. The Board of Commissioners and/or staff that are requested in the executive session will be asked to join a separate breakout room on the interactive media. The Board of Commissioners and/or staff present in the executive session will rejoin the meeting at the conclusion of the executive session by agreed upon time and take action as deemed necessary. In addition, I will point out that Mandy sent us a reminder of the rules that we need to follow during these meetings. And we haven't exactly been doing all of these things. So I hope you remember what she sent us, and especially to remember that you need to be muted when you're not speaking. Okay, there's all of that. I would like someone to make a motion on the approval of the 2 sets of minutes. Can we do that? I think we can do that at the same time.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the December 16, 2020 regular meeting minutes and the December 29, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any comments, corrections, additions, or changes to those?
I have
Sets
a
of
question.
Go ahead.
In the minutes, in 2 spots where it talked about the meeting with the city on, I think, December 17th, perhaps, or I can't remember the date specifically. I'm trying to find it. In the minutes, it included a statement on both comments twice in the minutes that said that HUD specifically said they didn't want to be part of that discussion of pilot. And I don't remember that being stated in our discussion. And I just wanted to check and see if that was discussed after our meeting or if that was part of our discussion and I just missed it.
No, it was brought up, I think, maybe it might, I'm not sure exactly when or where it's stated, but I did mention that HUD had stated when we were talking about pilot and the call that was coming up with the city. I think you mentioned, Jamie, that it might be a good time to mention the pilot. And HUD does not want to be a party to that request at all. So, but we did end up getting it brought up during the.
Okay, I just wondered, like I said, I just didn't remember that specific statement being said in that discussion. So, and it was in there twice, and I just wanted to make sure that I didn't mishear or if there was a follow-up question or conversation that I should be aware of. So that's it. Otherwise, good.
Okay. Good, Jamie. I do think I remember that Joanne mentioned at least once that was the case.
Excellent. I wasn't really questioning that. It was more for my understanding of it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions about those minutes? Then I will call the question.
Jan,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and Libby.
Yes.
All right. Joanne, would you like to go ahead and make your report? I know we received it in writing, but I think you might want to go over some things.
Sure. Just about everything. One thing that's not in the report that I have to report is not great news, but we have been having trouble with the large elevator at the apartment towers. And we have learned that it needs a repair or a part replaced. It's about $100,000. So it looks like we are going to be revamping our capital fund budgets so we can pay for that out of our capital fund budget and not affect our operating budget. So that's not terrific news. The elevators are getting old, and the representative at the elevator company, ThyssenKrupp is who we use, did give us a price that they just replaced 2 elevators in a 12-story building in Great Bend at a cost of almost $425,000. So that's something that we will need to be thinking about and planning for. The good news is that I did identify another potential funding source. Our insurance company, the Housing Authority Insurance Group that specializes in funding housing authorities, has created a fund to assist with capital improvements in buildings like ours. When I first saw that, I was thinking more towards requesting some money for the fire alarm system or the fire sprinkler system. However, we've got that in the capital fund budget, plus getting some money from CDBG for that. So it may be something we want to pursue to put towards elevators. Other than that, occupancy remains about the same at the apartment towers. Patrick, I believe, did 2 move-ins this month and has 1 more scheduled that we know of, confirmed. Is that right, Mandy?
No, he has done, as of tomorrow, he will have 5 lease ups done this month.
In
And,
the towers?
and well, apartment towers in Carlson. And he has a potential of around 5 more by the end of the month, and a potential of 7 in the first couple weeks of February.
So that will help. We do have some people moving out for various reasons, either voluntarily or not. But we will keep pedaling forward as much as we can. I said it in my report, 4 units were leased. We have received all of our price quotes now for tree trimming, have not gone through and recorded them or awarded a contract just yet. But it does look like it's going to come in less than it's actually tree trimming and some tree removal. There's one really large tree at Potawatomi Court that is just is going to be a bear to get out. And so we had $45,000 in the capital fund budget, but it looks like we're not going to use all of that money up. So that's good news. The sidewalk improvement project was completed. So Precision Concrete Cutting came in and they were able to cut down the tripping hazards in the sidewalks where they had unleveled themselves. So that should help us on our physical score with REAC because we did lose a lot of points for tripping hazards. Of course, there are some that couldn't be corrected by cutting the concrete, so those sections will have to be replaced. But this it really was more cost effective. The total cost was $15,000. $3,000 of that Flint Hills Place will pay for. So, and again, that's funded out of the capital fund project or program. Maintenance is back to doing emergency work orders only, or very high priority, non-emergency work orders. So that people are not without, say, a washer and dryer for a long period of time when possible. We did have, as you know, a scare with a positive employee, so we wanted to make sure we keep everybody safe. Everybody has passed their quarantine. We had no further cases or problems. So just to be on the safe side, and because cases are still coming in weekly, we've reverted back to emergency work order mode. We have, this is not in the report, but we have kind of revamped the way maintenance is tackling some of these vacancies in hopes of getting them done a little quicker, and split them up a little more into different teams to get them done. And so hopefully on your next report, you will see very few units that are not ready or leased up. So again, we're expecting by the end of this week, the comprehensive needs assessment results. I did speak via email with the gal that is working on preparing them. And she had thought I would have one by early this morning, one of the sites, but I didn't receive it. So hopefully we're still on track to get those back by the end of this week. At Flint Hills Place, Patrick has really made a lot of progress, although we did have one public housing unit become vacant. We have 2 that are pending approval in anticipation of another coming open. And he is working with 7 tax credit applicants right now. And that's really a pretty good number of tax credit applicants. On the tax credit side is where we have always struggled with having enough applicants. So that is a good thing. I'm sure you all heard that the Assistant Public and Indian Housing Secretary resigned prior to the end of his term. It will be interesting to see what comes in with the new administration and how the changes that we might see and how things will evolve with the new administration. Much of that remains yet to be seen. We are disappointed to see that the administrative fee funding level for Section 8 remains very, very low at 83.832%. Very difficult to fund the overhead for a program at that funding level. So it's something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on. We were happy, however, to see that the public housing operating subsidy came in at more. I'm sure the needs are more. And so we will know once all of the operating subsidy requests are submitted to HUD at what level we're funded. They'll decide how to fund everybody once they have all the requests and know what the budget is. So they'll have to figure it out and let us know. For now, we're being funded at last year's level. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to report.
I have a question. On the chart, the big chart that has all of the different properties listed and says has the unit status and the applicant status and so forth. There are several listed that say not ready, but they say they're assigned determining eligibility.
Right.
So I'm not sure I understand what that means.
So that means that Patrick is working with somebody and has assigned them to that particular unit. Assuming that they are determined eligible, that's the unit they will move into. He's determining eligibility. Maintenance is making the unit ready
So that's happening at the same time.
simultaneously. Yes.
So by the time one of those things happens, the other, it'll be ready.
It should be ready or very close to it.
Okay, okay. That answers my question. Are there any other questions from Joanne's report?
I have a question, and I'm not sure if it fits here, or we don't have financial reports, but we have a section for it, so I'm not sure where it best fits. Do you want me to ask it now and see where it lands?
I think we should wait until we get to that section according to my rules and regulations here.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Just in case it does fit here, it pertains to our CARES Act funding, and I just have a question. Does that fit? Joanne, do you think more in financial or in this section?
Probably more in financial.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Let's be sure that the minutes reflect the information in the director's report. I would like to commend you on the content of the minutes from the last meetings. They were very detailed and very excellent, and I appreciated that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about the director's report? Linda has a question.
Well, I'm looking at the occupancy report also, the one Jan referred to. I counted 40 that say not ready. Does that mean they're out of service? I mean, or is everything, that's what this assigned means, is that you're working with them. But the total as of December 31st is that we had 40 that were vacant, right? Am I interpreting that right?
Yes.
Okay. Out of 202, how many total?
232.
232, okay. Didn't see that.
According to my question, according to what Joanne said, by the time they're ready to go in, they'll be ready for them to go in. So that should look really good next month.
And that, yeah. And I have authorized overtime for the maintenance guys. If they need to get a unit ready for somebody to move in, I've authorized them to do overtime to get the unit ready if they need it. Sometimes they have to stop. They get called off to an emergency work order or something, but that requires more than one of them. But whatever it takes, they've been instructed to get them done.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. Anything else before we call this question?
Well, just as a last comment on that, I want to make sure it's clear that because a person's been assigned to that unit, if it says determining eligibility, it doesn't mean they've been determined eligible yet. There still could be a hiccup. They could be over income. They could have something on their background check. It could be, poor previous participation. Anything could get in the way of that.
How many vacancies did we have last month? Did we improve our condition? Or is it the same, or?
November, I would have to pull the November report up.
I called 40 on this page, so.
Mandy, do you know offhand? You're muted, Mandy.
I'm trying to pull that report right now.
Okay, good. I need to remind you that you need to be muted when you're not speaking.
So it looks like at the end of November, public housing was at 19.3% vacancy. Public housing low-income tax credit was at 0, and then low-income tax credit was at 36.7.
Like 3 of these vacancies happened in December.
So next month it'll be better. That's what I'll be counting on it. Okay,
Add a column to that report that says whether it changed from last month. That might be a good thing to add so we can see that easily.
so we don't have to do the calculation.
Right.
Put it on one of those Excel automatic tabulation things.
Okay. Any other questions or clarifications in this section? I call the question.
Jan,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Livy,
Yes.
and Linda.
Yes.
Just as
Kennedy,
a,
Kennedy, are
sorry.
you here?
She just
I don't
popped
think-
back on. Kennedy,
Kennedy, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
just as
Right.
a afterthought to that, you can look on the program activity report and see the fluctuation in vacancies from month to month.
Okay, I'm going to move on to financial reports, and I'm going to have Mandy explain what she's written there in the agenda section, and then Jamie can ask her questions.
all right. So our financials for December, since they're year end, they're not ready yet. We're hoping to have those by the middle of February. It may be later than that. They are due to the fee accountant by the 25th. So we're hoping to have them in time for next board meeting. So there won't be any financials this month for the board to approve. And on top of that, there's no 2021 operating budget revision because we're just now into January. So, but I project to have a 2021 operating budget revision for the March meeting for sure.
Okay, so that was my question I was going to ask. Based on the problem with the elevator and the tree removal, are those things that will cause changes in the budget?
They shouldn't because they'll be funded out of the capital fund budget.
Okay, and so you don't have to justify or change that or do anything?
We'll have to change that, but we can change that without going through approvals as long as we stay within the same category.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Linda.
I'm wondering, we keep missing the timing of the fee accountant or whoever they are report with our meetings. And they're not final yet, they're tentative, or they're not ready, or how can we make that more deliberate? Can we give the fee accountant a new deadline? Can she come up with one that's more in tune with what we need? I don't know the answers, I'm just asking. Because it's, we as a board, we're getting nailed. And so I would like to be, have us make sure that we can function in a very deliberate manner. And if it has to be this way, then maybe we can change our expectations. But my expectation is that by the 20th of the next month, the information ought to be available from the end of the month before. So tell me how I'm wrong, or tell me how to adjust my expectations.
Andy, I think when I was signing papers, you said something about having discussed this with the HUD people. And so they were aware of this problem. You want to explain that?
Sure. I did talk with our financial analyst and explained to him that since it was year end, the fee accountant wasn't even going to touch our financials until after January 25th. Do we proceed with the board meeting and put a statement on the, under financials that they're not available until next month? Do we postpone the meeting altogether and move it? And he said, definitely do not postpone it. Just put a comment and make sure it's in your minutes of why the financials aren't available. And that would suffice for him.
Well, that would have been good to know. Okay.
Yeah, and the other, can I just cut in here for a minute? The other part of that is to complete the year-end financials. They have to have all of the 2020 bills that come in after the end of the year. They also have to have a lot of extra year-end information that Mandy has to submit to them to complete our financial data schedules that are submitted to HUD for our financial reports. They have been doing better the last few months because we've kind of cracked down on them and said you need to have your financial reports to us in time for our board meetings. But with year end, there is just no way. The financial data schedules have to be submitted to HUD by February 28th, and the unaudited ones. And it's a tight timeline for them to get the year-end ones done.
Okay, I understand that the end of the year is a whole lot of data and requires a lot of documentation. And I think I'm just reacting to, yet again, the fee accountant can't get us the information in time for our meeting so we can fulfill that nasty September 3rd letter that HUD sent us about us not doing our job. And so I'm just trying to do my job
Yeah.
and just be a good board member. So,
and we have shared with them that HUD has come down on us and they must have the reports to us in a timely manner. Even the year-end ones need to be to us in a timely manner when they're due, but especially monthly, to be included in the monthly board packets.
so if they are not functioning satisfactory after another 6 months, then we need to do something, get another fee accountant that can do the job that we need done so that we have a good, clean record and our board members feel good about the job they're doing, because we're going to be behind the curve every month. At least we have been. So anyway, thanks. Next time.
I think that
I'd
in,
like to
I
note
think that,
that we have had them on time for at least 2 months, maybe 3.
yes, we have.
Like after the letter that it improved.
Okay, all right. Very good. My impression was old
I
news.
agree.
Thank you.
Thanks, Libby. I was going to say the same thing. Okay, so we don't have anything to vote on for financials, which brings us to the commissioners'
Jamie had
comments.
questions.
I still have
Jamie
a
had
question.
questions.
Sorry.
Oh,
So
Jamie.
I know this isn't on this agenda in regard to our financials, but last month we talked about the CARES funding that we have. And I wanted to ask, what's the source of that funding in terms of, that's not related to PPP loans, is it?
No.
So do we qualify for these new rounds of PPP loans? And is that something worth looking into to see if we could offset any of our more expensive debt or other loans with some funds from that, or our payroll due to our decreased occupancy and some of our late tenant payments?
We would have to review to see if we are eligible for them.
Can we?
I don't know without
I-
reviewing
I
them.
think it would be in our benefit to look into that if we're not too late, because this round is specifically to provide economic aid to nonprofits, small businesses. It specifically addresses housing. I don't know if we qualify in that category, but it sure seems like we might, and it would be potentially a lot cheaper funding than what we have, and even potentially something that could be forgiven at some point, which would also be nice.
Yeah. I know when the last round came out, I did read, because I was interested in the rental assistance part of it, getting some money for rental assistance. And housing providers, it specifically said housing providers were not eligible. So
In this round, they are. In this round,
They
there is
are.
certain filings, but housing cooperatives, 501c6 organizations, 501c3, they have new entities eligible that I think would be worth, I don't know if we'll qualify, but I think it'd be worth checking. And even that, I don't want to say it's going to be a fit for us, even if we do qualify, but I think we should find out if it is and what the terms are and if it's something that could benefit us or offset something else so that we're not making this high payments on something else.
One touch point might be Jason Smith, who's the executive director, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. He came to our city commission meeting the other night to talk about, they have been in touch with the State Department of Commerce, and they are supposedly on top of the new issue, new money opportunity from the feds. So try them. If not, maybe go to the Department of Commerce. I think it's worth making a couple of phone calls rather than trying to read it yourself and interpret it.
Yeah, I wouldn't waste our time. I would go directly, either like you said, to the chamber or to our banker, go to our bank and say, let's submit an app. And if we get denied, we get denied. If we get approved, then we'll decide if it fits us. But it's up to 2 million in funds.
Get something that comes down through the state, but I'll go out. I haven't gotten anything yet, but I'll go out there and research it some more.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a short deadline, so you might want to tend to it.
That
Was
was my
that your-
question.
Okay, anything else falling under financial? We don't have to vote on. Okay. Does anybody have a commissioner's comment? Okay, hearing none, I'm moving on to old business. Does anybody want to make a recommendation on this one?
I wonder if Joanne would remind us of the amount that is involved.
Last month, the board opted to provide 0% COLA and merit increases, which is what we had requested. The Housing Authority had also proposed a one-time employee incentive payment of $750 for each employee. After much discussion and thinking about the proposal, there were several options that were kind of discussed by the board in considering it, and were included some differentials for longer term versus shorter term employees, maybe 500 and 750, or a reverse differential where the shorter term or lower paid employees got more than the longer term or higher paid employees, or a lower amount across the board, or some combination of the above, or nothing at all. So we put this back on the agenda this month at the request of the board to table this item until January. And so I tried to summarize the conversation and the options that were discussed in the agenda memo to bring it back to the table, since that was what the board had requested. I did not put a recommendation from administration, nor did I put a possible motion in the agenda memo as I normally do, because at this point it's on the table for the board to discuss and take action with. So you might recall that last month we had included it in the 2020 budget revision number 1. And then when it was tabled, we did another budget revision. The CARES Act funds were going to be used to fund that based on a conversation with the financial analyst who is no longer at HUD, who was our rep. And so the CARES Act funds were added back to the budget in budget revision number 2. And then the 2021 budget was also revised at the same time so that it would show the CARES Act funds being carried over into 2021. Since we have been assigned a new financial analyst at HUD, he suggested that if we were to do this, that we do not utilize CARES Act funds just because he believes that they're going to be extremely scrutinized. Although the regulation says that we can, he suggests that it be used for other items, such as how we recategorized it for unit turnover. So,
And there was another question, and I think it was in your report here, a question about people who were still in their
probationary period.
probationary period, who would not be eligible for anything at all during that time.
Mandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe one of those comes off probation this month.
Yes,
And the other one in February
right.
or March.
I'm going to make a suggestion here, and the board can let me know how they feel about it. I think we need to postpone this item again. Table this item again, perhaps until we settle the hiring of the new executive director.
Can I make a suggestion if that's the case? Because I don't think you want to table it. Perhaps you want to make a motion to not approve it this time, take it off the agenda and request to have it brought back up in X number of months or not.
Somebody got a comment?
That's up to the board.
Yeah, I'm asking for somebody to speak.
So,
I'd like Joanne to repeat what she said. I'm trying to understand exactly what it is that she's recommending or suggesting.
I think she's suggesting that we vote it down and bring it up later rather than tabling it again.
Unless you think you will take action at it at the next meeting, but I don't think you want to just keep putting it on the agenda as a tabled item, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, can we move to put it off until a specific meeting, for example, the February meeting?
Yes, you can request to table it until the February meeting.
I, for one, am very strongly in favor of some amount of money for all the employees below Joanne and Mandy's level, simply because all of those employees are paid way below the minimum wage or living wage level. And my understanding is that these employees have been loyal, hardworking, are doing a good job. And I think it's very important that we do what we can as a board to maintain the consistency of our employees.
So you were suggesting that we do it not for Mandy and Joanne, but for the other 8 people?
I think that was the original idea, was it not?
No, originally it included everybody, I think.
Well, in that case, I'll change it to everybody.
But that's another option that you can consider.
Jamie, you shook your head when I was saying what I was saying. You want to make a comment?
I like the idea of postponing or revisiting it at a set date because we have so many unknowns. I'd be curious to hear the objectives of a new ED and how that would fit in with a new ED's objectives as well. But also the inconsistent response we've gotten over the last 2 months from HUD in regard to utilizing the CARES funding versus not utilizing it causes pause, because that was one of the big reasonings last month that we almost decided to approve it, was because it wasn't going to affect our budget. It was going to affect the CARES funding that we needed to use. I'm not saying that changes my opinion on whether or not we do it, but it does. It's new information that it seems inconsistent. It'd be nice to be able to make this with as much consistency as we can.
Wasn't it the case that we have until June or something like that, May or June, to use the funds?
June 30th.
Okay, so is it possible for us to maybe push it back until March or April to make the decision? So could we like say that we want to pull it off the agenda until March or April as opposed to February?
You can.
How do we feel? Can I see a nodding of heads or raising of hands if people think that's okay?
Can I ask one more quick question in that regard with
Sure.
what was just said? If we have excess funds in May that need to be utilized by June, is there anything that would limit us from quickly making a decision to use those funds for things such as this?
No.
So if we have a balance in that funding, it would make sense for us at that time to take that balance and utilize it for this, unless HUD tells us we're going to be scrutinized for that.
Yes, I think
I
that's
also
fair
have a
assessment,
question.
but they've already mentioned, they already think that housing authorities who have done this are going to be, it's going to be scrutinized. How it's going to be scrutinized, I don't know, but
Does
Debbie?
it make a difference whether it's used as if we call it a bonus or if we call it hazard pay and only give it to people who are frontline, having to, like, the very nature of their job means they have to be in contact with clients?
you can't call it a bonus. HUD doesn't
Right.
allow bonuses. You can call it a performance incentive. You can call it hazard pay. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But whatever you call it, we have to document it.
Right. Does it make a difference if it is hazard pay and we specifically pinpoint the people who have been at higher risk? I mean, I feel like that to me is a more justified use of the COVID money, of the CARES money. If we do it from our regular budget, it's a different conversation.
I think,
Yes, you can do that, Libby.
okay, I think these are all valid points. And I think because we have so many things in flux right now, I would prefer to put this off so that it's done with either the new ED or with Joanne and the new ED or something. And I like the idea of targeting people who are in a more critical situation rather than the two top slots. So will someone, I like the idea of March. Someone want to make that recommendation?
So moved.
So we are going to put this off of the February agenda and move it to the March agenda for further conversation. And maybe we can get some more information about what the nature of the scrutiny is from HUD on using those funds for hazard pay. Okay.
I just have a comment. I oppose giving raises, but it occurred to me while we were talking that I would support giving the two employees a raise that are on probation in an effort to retain them, because when we hired them, we probably told them that you'd get a raise after 6 months or whatever it is. But I am firm in not giving raises. We had to make this decision for the fire department, the police department, the city, the county, all of us, and we've all held the line because we know that funding is a problem this year. For the city and county, our sales tax has dropped. I don't, even look at the troubled status we're in based on finances. And so I would I want us to be very prudent here and know that we're under a lot of scrutiny, and this isn't a time to give raises across the board as far as I'm concerned. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
I would
Linda,
also
do you
comment that the people that you're talking about in those levels are much higher paid than the people that we're talking about. We're talking about a staff for Manhattan Housing Authority below Joanne and Mandy that are barely making ends meet. That's one of the things I put in the evaluation. Is I think one of the things that we need to work for is that our employees should be paid at a level where they can survive, called a living wage, whatever that is. Now, I haven't determined what that is in Manhattan, but I think that should be one of our goals.
And this is certainly not a raise. I would not call this a raise. Although I don't disagree with Linda that we need to be in line with everybody else in the city county, but I certainly would not call this a raise. All right, so we are going to remove it we are going to not do anything with this now, and we're going to put it off. Mandy's waving her hand.
We need a second.
We need
Second.
a second. Kennedy seconds. So we're gonna move this. The motion is to move this discussion to March. Call the question.
Jan,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Jamie,
And
Livy,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
and Kennedy.
Yes.
Okay, now we are going to move on to the next item under old business, which is the updating the discussion regarding recovery agreement and action plan. Joanne?
I wrote so many minutes. I'm trying to remember where we are. Katie Jackson, city attorney, has sent to HUD a proposed revision to their recovery agreement. And I believe I sent that out to all of you. I liked her changes, her revisions. I thought they made sense. And still met HUD's goal of having the city involved in some way. Craig Olson has reviewed them. He's okay with those revisions. We have not heard back from HUD. The legal counsel that were on the call from HUD, there was 2 of them, seemed to be much more relaxed about the time frame to get this back than the initial call with the majority of the board was on. So I did talk to Craig yesterday, and he was going to follow up to see if they had any questions or needed anything else from us. We're having any particular thoughts, but I'm sure the deadline is getting close to get things on the next. Well, it's too late to get anything on in January now. So I'm sure the deadline is going to be approaching for February very shortly also. Plus, we would like to get this kind of wrapped up and move forward with it as well. I think everybody would like to. I've been kind of compiling the various versions of the action plan that's an attachment to that recovery agreement that we have got. None of them are dated, so I'm going back through emails and printing the email and putting it with them. But I posed the question to HUD, how, because the last one they sent me, they said, this is still not a final copy. And I said, well, how can this not be a final copy if you're asking us and the city to sign off on the recovery agreement? And this is an attachment to the recovery agreement. That's like signing the mortgage papers and filling in the blanks later. And he indicated to me, this was Adam Austin, I believe, that responded to me and said it would be finalized. It would be a final copy when the recovery agreement was signed and executed by whoever is going to sign and execute the recovery agreement. But in our call with HUD legal counsel, they also could not quote any statute that required the city to sign. They said there is no statute. It's customary for the city to sign. However, one way or another, the recovery agreement will be executed. And so, Katie, in her email to HUD, indicated that, the city's position is that we don't have that kind of a relationship with the housing authority. And so the city would prefer to not be involved in signing the recovery agreement. However, if you stand firm, here's the revisions that we're proposing. So that's kind of where we are right now.
The draft that I have that you sent, and maybe it's because I just realized, I think I've only looked at it on iPad and phone and not on an actual computer. It doesn't show a red line of what her changes are.
It
Is
has
the draft-
comments out to the side. It should.
Okay, I think it's just because of the version that I'm looking at. So I'll make sure I look at it on my computer instead of on my iPad.
Okay. Yeah.
But the biggest,
It should be redlined and it should show her comments out to the side.
okay, the biggest part I saw was the part of the City of Manhattan, the very last paragraph. Other than that, I didn't see that it really reflected much that the
Yeah.
city was involved with.
There's a paragraph on I believe it's on the previous page. I want to say it's section 6. I should have it in front of me.
There's a paragraph about they're overseeing the board that didn't make sense to me. They don't
Yeah.
have any, once they appoint us, they don't have any say about us.
And
But they
then
do appoint us, which
Yes.
gives them
appoint you.
that. I mean,
But then-
if they're,
And another thing that came up in that conversation was the fact that our bylaws reference a standard operating procedure or standard operating policy that the city had years ago and it's not even in existence anymore. And the provision for removing board members states that the city will, the procedure in the bylaws is that the board, the MHA Board of Commissioners would vote to remove a member for good cause and then forward that to the city commission, who would remove the board member. The city doesn't even have that authority anymore. So we need to revise our bylaws.
and that's kind of, I think, the bigger part of this question I have is, after we get a response, or after, I guess, the city and you get a response from HUD as to whether or not they accept this agreement, and kind of give us some better definition of what the city's involvement is with us, it would be really nice to have council come to one of our meetings and talk to us about what that looks like and how we meet that obligation, and what the obligation is on our part and what it is on our institute's part, and how we need to acknowledge the city in that capacity to make sure we are bringing them in whatever capacity they need to be.
Yeah. Actually, it was section 2 I was referencing earlier, Jamie. There's a change in there
Thank
with
you.
comments.
Okay, it seems like this issue is sort of out of this board's hands at this point.
It is, it's out of,
Is-
the ball is in HUD's court at the moment.
And the cities. And so what will happen if the city decides they don't want to sign it?
Well, I mean, that remains to be seen. The city and the housing authority and Craig we're all waiting to hear back from HUD
Okay,
what their take is.
okay,
If the city decides they don't want to sign it, Jan, it likely becomes a dispute between the city and HUD. And
Yeah.
it affects us indirectly, but it's not really our battle at that point.
okay.
That's correct, Jamie. And it was kind of my impression when the HUD attorney said, if the city refuses to sign, we will get it executed, that they would execute it without the city, not gladly, but they would. Because they have no leverage. There's no statute that requires it.
For
Okay.
HUD, you mean for HUD or for the city?
For HUD.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it ends up being just the housing authority and HUD that sign it.
we, all of the things that they've said that we need to hurry up and get done, they need to hurry up and get this done, because we can't begin to meet the requirements that they want us to meet to follow that plan until it's a plan. So I'm getting frustrated with this part of the process, that it's all wrapped up with the city, who it shouldn't be. And the city's being asked to do something they don't want to do. And now it's another month gone by before we can work on fulfilling the plan.
Well, I do disagree in the fact that there's numerous items that we already are aware that we need to do, and we're doing them. I mean, we've talked about that with the spreadsheet that we looked at last month or the month before, with the action items that we talked about as a board. And those are part of this plan in a sense, and the obligations that we have. So I want to make sure that we all know, particularly Joanne in this case, which I know she does, but I want to make sure we know that we should be following through with those items, because just because this isn't approved doesn't mean that that wouldn't affect us if we're not moving forward on the items that have been acknowledged as action items.
We are following through, and some of the items are completed. I mean, they can be checked off of the action plan as soon as it's approved.
Yeah, some of them were completed before the action plan was even a draft.
That's right. They won't recognize that they're completed until they have a signed, executed recovery plan that the action plan is an attachment to. The benefit, I guess, is that we have this extra time that we're kind of pedaling along doing what we need to be doing. And by the time they get this thing signed, we could be almost done with it. There's some things, that we won't know if we achieved until the end of the year for the new scores for 2021. You won't know those till 2022. So, but the longer it takes them to sign it, the longer we have to accomplish our goals, because it specifically says that the second FAS score that is issued after the execution of the recovery agreement.
Yes.
So the longer it takes them to sign it, the longer it gives us to meet our goals. Not
I
that
agree with
we
that.
want to drag this out any longer than we need to,
But we should
Okay.
definitely actively be working towards those action items so that we are, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, the
We're
best case
already
scenario
working.
is that when this is approved, we're already a majority of the way through it.
Okay, I stand corrected. I just feel like we may be working on it, but they're not giving us any credit for getting anything done, and
well, they're
that's
not giving us credit for it, no, but we are working on it and getting it done.
right. I want credit. I want somebody to know that we're doing it. Okay, so I am going to turn the next part of this meeting over to Kennedy.
I'm
who-
sorry, can I say one more quick thing in that regard?
Sure.
Because I did forget about this. in terms of the city meeting, if in the event that this does go to the city commission and is in the public forum of the city meeting for approval, Jan, you just made a really good point that I wanted to address, is that we should be prepared to state and represent that we have met a number of the obligations in that meeting, so that in the public forum, it is acknowledged that it isn't this long laundry list anymore. It's a very short list. And these are the items that we have done, and these are the items that we have to do. So that I don't think that we should be inactive in that meeting. I think that we probably need to be proactive and responsive so that we don't get publicly destroyed in that discussion by unknowns that people just don't understand.
Okay, good idea. So that's something else Joanne's got to have ready when it comes up. Okay,
Hopefully it won't be the first meeting in February then, because I don't think I'll be able.
I know. You're going to the hospital.
Mm.
All right, but Mandy will be there and Mandy will be able to take care of it. All right, so the next part of this meeting is about the executive session, which the thing that we're going to be discussing is the hiring of the new ED. And since Kennedy's been the chair of that subcommittee, I'm going to have Kennedy take it from here.
So how long do you think we need to go into executive session? Or maybe 45 minutes?
I would give us an hour, and if we don't use it, we're good. And if we,
No.
if we
go in
said,
for an hour, you have to stay in for an hour.
oh,
So if we, hold on, if we, wait, we have to stay in for an hour even if we finish. So 45 minutes.
Better
then-
to go short and come out and go back in than to go long and have
That
to.
too.
Right.
Okay.
So do we want to go 30 minutes, 45 minutes? What do you think, Liv? V?
Probably 45, I'm guessing.
Okay. So we'd like to go into executive session for 45 minutes. And when we do this, Mandy, we would need you to send us into a breakout room, or Joanne. I noticed that you're both hosting.
Yeah, I can do it.
and
Yeah,
it would be
something
just the
different.
board members and no staff.
Gotcha. Okay, I just need a second because Kennedy moved.
Second,
All right, Jan,
Yes.
Phil,
yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Livy,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
and Kennedy.
Yes.
All right.
So somebody send us to a breakout room.
Mandy's working on it.
Okay.
And we have to stop the recording and the live Facebook streaming.
Correct. All right. Sending y'all.
So everybody's got to click join.
So out of that session, we don't need to vote to come out of that session, right? Perfect. So we are going to schedule a special meeting for next Wednesday. But we're going to be in executive session the entire time.
I will be headed in to Wichita for my surgery the following day because I have to be at the hospital at 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're going in the night before. So you don't need me present.
We don't need you present, and we will keep you in our thoughts.
Thank you.
Send positive vibes your way.
Thank you.
Have we heard any more about Ida Jane?
No, just what I sent you in the email.
Okay. Have you decided how much money you want from me?
We are recording.
I know.
Okay.
Okay, never mind. Let me know what you want from me.
Me too.
Did everybody get my email?
Yes.
I thought we
Yeah,
talked.
please just email me and let me know. And Jan, it's entirely up to you. I just need to know.
I
No,
think-
come by tomorrow and afternoon and I'll give you a check. I'm so sad to hear about that, and I'm sorry that we will be losing a valued member from this board. And I think it's okay to say that we've appreciated her service for so many years.
Yeah.
We'll need,
Uh,
we'll
do we
need,
need,
we'll need to let the city manager's office know too. We'll need to let the city manager's office know at some point so they can appoint another resident, housing resident to our board.
Right.
She has
We'll have to send out it and let the public housing and Section 8 residents know that there's an opening.
yeah,
And so that they can submit their interest and we need to also make sure that it's an appropriate appointment.
yeah.
And so we'll get through it. We haven't had to do it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But
But I'd like you not to do it prematurely, so it
Yes.
exactly, I think it would be best at this point to wait until things have run their course and declare the seat vacant at that time.
be
That's
very,
correct.
very respectful. She's been a long-serving person on our
Yeah.
board.
Agreed.
okay, guys, I think we've done everything we need to do tonight. And so I am going to,
Has anybody checked yet? Did you receive Kennedy's email with an attachment tonight? I don't think I have. I just looked before while we were transitioning. Kennedy, you're on mute.
It wasn't in the email. I put it in the file that I already sent you with the interviews. It's in
Okay.
the same link. You should be able to access it there. Let me know if there's a problem.
Okay, I will. Thank you. All right.
okay.
Thank you,
Good night, everyone.
Andy. Thank you, Joanne.
Good
Yeah.
meeting.
To the whole board. This is
Take
not-
care of yourself, Joe.
not
I
easy.
will. Thank you, everyone, and thank
Please
you for your support.
We're thinking about you. Serious stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.